This is the Grounded Podcast, episode number 1, with Dean Lister and me, Jocko Willink. Why do I need another podcast? This is a good question. You and I have been talking about doing a podcast for a while. I've talked about doing other little marginalized or smaller podcast things. Part of this is because of the expectations and the standards of the Jocko podcast. The standards of the Jocko podcast are high, I will say. I don't know a better way to put it. You know, I'm talking about some very specific things. It strays off occasionally, but I'm talking about human nature. I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about leadership and human nature through the lens of war and through the lens of atrocities and through the lens of human struggle. And I will always be talking about those, and I will always be interested in those things. But those things are not my only interest in the world. So other interests that I have are really varied from, I mean, obviously at the top of the list is Jiu Jitsu. I've been interested in that for a long time. All kinds of fighting, surfing, music, you know, nature, shooting, just getting into archery. There's just all kinds of different things, and I meet all kinds of people in all these different arenas all the time. I learn a lot from them just from talking to them, just from talking to other people. And I was saying to you earlier that you and I will sit there and talk on the mat. We get done training, we're sitting there talking for 20 minutes. Sometimes it's a half an hour, sometimes it's 45 minutes about things that I'm curious about, that I want to know about, that you have knowledge on, or that you're asking me a question about something that I have knowledge on. And I look back at those things and I think, man, I wish I would have recorded those conversations, because there's good knowledge there to learn. The other thing about this is I get that knowledge without reading anything, without studying anything, without doing a massive amount of preparation, but just by talking and asking questions and listening. So I think other people can learn from that as well. And I'm not going to do a bunch of preparation like I do for Jocko podcast, because I quite honestly do not have time. It's physically impossible to do that much preparation, but that doesn't mean that I should not try and get word out there and it doesn't mean that you and I don't still have conversations that transfer knowledge, you know, back and forth between us. And it's the same thing with all these other things that I'm interested in. So anyways, you and I were talking about for 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes after we trained yesterday, what should we call it? What's a good name for this podcast?
Yeah.
And we were throwing around a bunch of stuff. And then I forget who said grounded.
I think it was your idea.
So grounded is obvious tie to Jiu Jitsu, because Jiu Jitsu is utilizing the ground as a tool, which is something I know we'll talk about, maybe not today, but when you start talking about how you use the ground as a weapon against your enemy,
yeah.
it's a pretty profound way to think, right? There's something that you and I are both standing on. You're going to use it as a weapon against me, and I don't know how to use it if I don't know that. So there's that. There's also staying grounded, right? People talk about, hey, that person staying, which is basically a way of saying that a person is staying humble. Hey, that person's staying grounded. You know, that person's grounded. It's like a positive thing to say. It means balance. It means base. It means you have roots, right? That person is grounded. It means there's a foundation. And also means that, you know, everything's connected. Like when you say, oh, all the lessons in this book are grounded in, right? So there's also like a concept that everything is connected, and that there's a thread that ties to all things. And as I say all the time, if you know the way broadly, then you see it in all things. And the things that we're definitely going to talk about. I mean, you always bring up examples of history, of warfare, of different generals and combat leaders and world leaders. You always talk about those people. You either tell me something, you ask me a question. So even the fact that the main subject of this podcast isn't the same as Jocko podcast, it'd be a little bit lighter, but there's no doubt in my mind that there's connections and that there is much to be explored and much to be learned and much to be talked about. So Dean Lister, What's happening, man? What number podcast were you on of Jocko podcast?
60-something or 160.
I think it might have been 160-something. So Google Dean Lister Jocko podcast. If you don't know anything about Dean, you'll find out Dean's past life or his current life, but his past achievements.
A few things, yeah.
In the field of mixed martial arts, of jiu-jitsu, of fighting, of instructing.
That's it.
Of wrestling, of sambo. There's a lot of things going on there.
Yeah.
And of being a mutant.
Could be, yeah.
So, jiu-jitsu, this is sort of my, definitely, as I've explained many times, this is the thing that ties a lot of threads together, and initially tied a lot of threads together for me in my brain. The more I understood jiu-jitsu, the more I understood everything in the world. Is that too bold of a statement? Is that too broad of a statement?
I like it.
It's the truth. It's the actual truth. I put things together because I started training jiu-jitsu, because I trained jiu-jitsu. Because you and I were training for 3-4 hours a day, trying to murder each other. It taught me about leadership. It taught me about combat. It taught me about war. It taught me about everything. And so let's talk jiu-jitsu a little bit. Not everyone trains jiu-jitsu. Should everyone train jiu-jitsu?
You know, I thought about this. I remember Joe Rogan talking about comedians. The only way to know if you could be a comedian is you just have to jump on the mic and try. Of course, not everyone is going to be a good comedian, but I think anyone could benefit from learning how to talk in front of other people. So, yeah, I don't think everyone would continue to train jiu-jitsu, but if everyone tried it, it would benefit them in some way, I think. So any kind of a risky or a behavior that's kind of can make you nervous or push your boundaries, I think is going to be beneficial for that person in the long run.
You know that saying when they talk about jiu-jitsu, like 100 people start, how many people make it to blue belt, how many people make it to purple belt, and then by the time you get to black belt, what do you think it is, 1 in 100?
Yeah, maybe less.
Maybe less than that, huh?
Less than that, yeah.
It's weird to me that people cannot do jiu-jitsu anymore.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of weird to you?
Yeah, it is. I think that some people get, let's say of 100 and let's say 40 get to blue belt. A lot of those will be like, hey, I got my title, I've done something in jiu-jitsu, but the rest is going to be a lot of hard work. I've got my belt, I'm out. So of those 40, you might get 15 that will stay. Maybe 25 will quit at blue belt. It's interesting. So you have 15 left that are continuing past blue belt. Maybe it's 30. It depends. Depends 15, 30. Depends on the where you are in the world, what age group you are, your level of interest, of course. But you get to a level where when someone gets past purple, usually they're kind of staying with it now. And if they stay, they keep doing what they've been doing, they can get to black. So the biggest filter would be white to blue and then blue to purple. The two big filters, in my opinion.
For me, I was just up with, I was doing some archery and I'm going hunting soon. And one thing I was talking with John Dudley, Andy Stumpf about is that there's like a primal part of our brain that exists. And for me, so like jiu-jitsu, I completely feel it. It feels totally innate in my personality to want to engage in combat with another human. I think that's pretty normal. Now, when I made this statement, I said all men feel like and then Andy Stumpf pointed out to me that that's not necessarily true. And there's some men that do not have that. And if they were around 300 or 400 years ago, they would be terminated, right? They like, how could you survive, right? Because someone like you would come along and just take whatever they had and kill them.
Well, I would never do that.
Unless they served a purpose. No, I'm talking 500 years ago.
I'm just joking. Yeah.
Okay, maybe 1,000 years ago.
No, it's true.
2,000 years ago.
It's true. I mean, I think that people have always found something to do, but the ones who got things done were in those days just stronger. Now there's so many ways to measure value. Things are just different now. But there's something inside the psyche. I think it's true.
Right. And then I found the same thing because we were up at a 3D archery target challenge So 3D means you're shooting at like 3-dimensional targets of animals. And yet, you're walking through the mountains and walking. And for me, it started reminding me of being in the SEAL teams and being on patrol, especially as a young SEAL when we used to still do a lot of work, not necessarily in the desert, but in the woods. And I was thinking that for me, again, it seems like an innate part of my brain is when you're on patrol, like, okay, here, you're going to go out into the woods and you're going to go catch dinner. That's what you're going to do. You're going to go hunt for dinner. And that seems to be a totally innate, like you can feel it firing. Oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. No matter what, no matter who you are on this planet, you have ancestors. That's what they did. They got spears or rocks or bow and arrow and they went, or guns, and they went out and they got dinner. They hunted dinner. They went out sometimes and they fought the other tribe. Like these to me seem to be innate parts of us. And that's one of the things that I think jiu-jitsu satisfies.
Well, because a lot of those activities are being, I'm not saying they should all be encouraged, because I'm not saying you should go out and want to kill other men specifically, but that innate desire to do something like we're talking about in the psyche, you can actually replace that with jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
and actually that's a really good point. Part of the innate thing is not just, hey, killing other men. Part of the innate thing is having having a gang, having a tribe, having a band of people that you're not trying to kill, but that you're actually on the team of. And hey, when you're out hunting with a couple other guys, it's like, yeah, we are working together to make this happen. When you're on the jiu-jitsu mat, you train together, and there's bonds that are created through the hard training. And that's another part that people can, you don't necessarily have to have that in modern society, right? In modern society, you don't necessarily have to have people that you rely on 100%, because if someone bothers you, you can call the cops and you can kind of be, you know what I mean? You don't need to have a gang or a tribe that you are close with. But in jiu-jitsu, you'll end up with that. Just the physical nature of it and the hard work nature of it. Like anytime you do trying things with other humans, you start to develop a bond with them. That's what boot camp does. That's what airborne training does. We're all going to get in this aircraft. We're all going to jump out of it, and we're going to form a team because we all have a shared struggle. Same thing with two-a-days on a football team or on a wrestling team. Like, oh, we're going to train really hard this summer, and we're going to form a bond.
Roger, yeah.
And so you and I have been training together for a long time. So those are some good reasons to start jiu-jitsu. Now, I don't want to make jiu-jitsu sound like a knuckle dragger sport. Yeah. Because, and I notice this especially with kids, the smart little kids, they get good at jiu-jitsu and they end up liking it immediately. Because they immediately see
power.
They see the power. But they see that, hey, I'm small, but if I learn this knowledge, then I'll be able to beat people that are bigger than me.
You almost have no choice but to learn the technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a strong kid or a strong individual, you definitely want to learn the technique, but you might be able to skirt by a little bit just by being strong. So interesting, the kid who is not born strong has to find a way to do it better, and therefore that's his only way to grow.
Is that why, like in wrestling, the weight classes, the smaller weight classes are so filled with more kids and the heavier weight classes? Or is that just because, like in high school, there's just less heavyweights, there's just less heavyweight humans?
There's also less 95-pound guys in high school. Yeah. So you get the 140, 145 in high school is packed.
I noticed, like with the SEALs, the guys that were just big dudes, they usually didn't gravitate towards jiu-jitsu because they already had the actuality of being able to smash people because they were big, and then their own perception that they could smash people because they were big, right? Like, hey, I don't need that. I'll just smash you.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens a little more, I guess, because you don't get the big guy. He might be a little more used to getting what he wants and talking like that. But you also get the small guys that want to do it real bad, too, to get some payback for the big guys. So, I don't know.
You used to be, when we started training, you were 174.
Yeah, that's true.
And you were a killer. You were a killer at 174. I'm thinking about that now. I mean, you were skinny.
Yeah. Yeah, I was 19 years old. So,
Yeah.
I used to cut to 173, so I probably was probably pushing 180.
Okay.
Pushing 180 probably. Yeah. Skinny though anyways, yeah.
But dang, you would murder people.
I've had a few good days. Yeah, a few good days.
All right, so jiu-jitsu. What other benefits do you get from jiu-jitsu?
Well, other than self-defense aspect, I mean, it's incredible. You get functional strength. You actually get functionally strong. It doesn't do so much to increase muscle size, but it gets you functionally strong. I know men who are professional powerlifters that in the weight room would just be kind of embarrassing if I was next to them. But they can't move on the ground with me. Like they're just like stuck like a turtle on flip on its shell. They can't even move. So there's a lot of functional application to the movements in jiu-jitsu. It engages your mind. It opens up a whole new side to your psyche that you see brand new to yourself that you didn't know was even there. Self-defense, as I mentioned, and you said this in a better way, that the fact if you cannot physically hold me here and I can leave, that's a pretty solid beginning to learn martial arts. Mm-hmm. I can decide to leave or stay. Or I guess I could maybe choose to hold you here if I wanted to. That's a pretty good deciding factor to learn self-defense.
Yeah, that's a big point of contention with people that are, what do you call people that are all into debating, different martial arts? Do they have a name?
I don't know.
But there's people, like the people that use the term multiple attackers all the time. What if you're up against multiple attackers? And they got like those kind of statements. And that's
one thing. Knife. He has a knife. What would you do?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? A guy with a knife is going to suck against anything.
Yeah.
That's a problem for anyone.
I try to clarify that in the Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manuals is when you learn jiu-jitsu as self-defense, you're not learning jiu-jitsu as self-defense so that you can go to the ground and finish someone. That's not why you're learning it. The initial reason for learning it is so you can get up off the ground, protect yourself if you go to the ground, and then you can get up off the ground and get away from somebody. So that's
grappling,
clear.
Super important. You look in the UFC. I'm using some classic examples. Chuck Liddell. Of course, he's versed in submission, but he was hard to take down. He could take a punch and he can knock you out. So if it's very hard to take that person down and they can hurt you on the feet, that's a problem already. And you have other people that will take you down and then proceed to mess up your day on the ground. So the idea of grappling is just very important. Mm-hmm. Then you have fighters like Anderson Silva, Nick Diaz, who, while of course having wrestling themselves, they're experts on the ground with submission and they're experts with striking. So we have the takedown aspect, which is wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, the ground aspect, which is jiu-jitsu with sambo, the submissions, and the stand-up aspect, boxing, kickboxing. You need to have two of the three to be a competitive fighter, at least two of the three.
Name the three again?
The takedown game.
Mm-hmm. So wrestling
yep.
/ judo?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Ground game. Ground fighting,
so submission, so jiu-jitsu, sambo, type thing. Okay,
and then striking,
boxing, Muay Thai.
There's many different types of takedowns. There's many types of ways to use the ground game. There's many types of ways to use the stand-up game. As just a broad comparison, stand-up damage, distance, the ability to take someone down or not be taken down to the ground, and then the ability to fight or get off the ground.
Check. Yeah, you definitely.
You need two of the three.
And your other third needs to be, you need to have game. You can't just not have any game at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't just be zero on that aspect that you're lacking.
Oh, you have to understand the third part, of course.
And that's just to re-clarify the thing that what you said, I said it better than you. That part, just going back to self-defense, and we'll close the book on that one, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more in the future, but if Dean Lister is attacking me, and I don't want to engage because I'm a normal human being that is avoiding getting into a street fight. If you stand there and raise your hands and square off with me, I should just run away. And then you either have to be able to catch me or, I delay the process or whatever. Yeah. But the minute that you grab hold of me, now I don't have a choice. Now the running is not a choice.
Yeah.
If you want to stand back and you want to kick me, even if you wanted to stab me with a knife, if you want to stab me with a knife, so you pull out a blade and you square off with me, cool, run. Right? That's what I'm going to do is I'm going to run. That defense of running works for all the stand-up game, if you pull out a baseball bat and you go, I'm going to beat you down. Okay, cool. I'm going to get away from you. I'm going to run away from you because you got a freaking baseball bat. The only time that changes is when you grab a hold of me, or if we're in some kind of confined conditions. So if we're in some kind of a confined condition, well, then I can't run. So then you are going to get close to me. And now in both those cases, I need to learn how to grapple.
I was saying, like, the last time, if we're sitting next to each other in a movie theater, like, it's going to be a problem for you to get away from me. If we're in an elevator, it's going to suck. You know? So these are specific. I don't know why I think of those crazy things. But.
Well, it's a good point, because if this goes to say, like, my strikes too. Like, if we're in a movie theater and you grab a hold of me, like, it's dark and you just grab a hold of me. I didn't have an opportunity to try and strike you. And you know what? I've tried to strike you thousands and thousands of times over the years. You know, I've tried to punch you, kick you. I've gotten through with some. Oh, yeah. But most of the time, I end up in a clinch situation and you're putting me on my back. That's the reality of it. So if we're in a movie theater and you decide you're going to attack me and I have great striking, but it's dark and all of a sudden you've got me in a body lock, my striking is not going to help me right there.
That would be.
This does not mean that I'm not anti-striking at all. I mean, obviously you have to know how to strike. And, you know, if you don't know how to strike at all, that's bad. And you should learn, because there are times, even in a self-defense thing, if I decide I can't run, it doesn't mean I grab you. I'm still going to try and punch you and knock you out, right? I don't want to grab you. I don't want to get in a grappling match with you. I'd rather just knock you out and walk away.
You know, Jocko, on that point, striking, I mean, let's just say, some of the more well-known and respected striking styles do incorporate some type of grappling, such as Muay Thai.
Yeah, true.
I mean, they will grab you.
And sweep you and put you on the ground.
There we go. So some of these martial arts have more than one of these aspects. Mm-hmm. Of course, I was just painting with a very broad brush about the takedown game, the strike game, the ground game. But yeah, if you look at a Muay Thai, an actual Muay Thai practitioner who's well versed, they will definitely grab you and can ruin your day as well.
When they clench you and get your head bent over and start kneeing you in the face, that's gonna jack you up. Yeah. And that's why you need to know striking. So let me ask you this. We're looking for a jiu-jitsu school, never done jiu-jitsu before. What are you looking for in a jiu-jitsu school?
My goodness. Let's see. I mean, besides typical how far away the gym is, let's put those all behind.
But those are important.
Yeah, they are.
I tell people this all the time. If you've got two schools that are, one's a little bit better, one's a little bit worse, but the one that's worse is you don't have to drive very far to, I'm going to measure that. And I'm going to take that into consideration, because I don't know about normal people, but I don't have a lot of time to be driving around, spend 48 minutes to get to the jiu-jitsu gym to train for an hour and then 48 minutes to get home. That's going to take a big chunk out of my day. If there's a place that's 9 minutes away, I might go to the 9-minute place.
What about the facility? Is it very important to you that the place has weights, sauna? Is this kind of stuff important to you? Do you value the traditional school? Do you want the school that's more relaxed? Do you want what kind of environment are you comfortable with? What kind of environment do you want?
Are you asking me this question?
Yeah,
specifically? Okay, hypothetically, you already know what kind of school I like, because we have a school that I like. We built a school that we want to train at, which is fairly relaxed, lots of facilities, always a place to train. So we've kind of got an ideal situation here. Yeah. Most people don't have that opportunity to have such a good place under one roof. Most people, they have to kind of pick and choose. They got to go to a gym to work out. They got to go to a gym for their jiu-jitsu. They got to go to a gym for their boxing and striking. They got to mix it up. So we don't really have that problem. But yeah, if that's something that's gi, no gi, we do both here.
Gi, no gi, yeah.
So
what about the coach? I've seen this before and some of them are my friends, by the way. I won't say names. I mean, very, very famous competitors that will have a gym, but they'll have many of these gyms, and they'll probably come by each gym twice a year or something like that. So if you have this world-renowned athlete who is not there teaching specifically, is his assistant teacher teaching well? Do you know what kind of style he is? Do you get along with his demeanor, his teaching style? That's very important because myself, anyone who's let's say an accomplished or maybe any kind of black belt is going to have a different type of teaching style. And not every champion, famous guy is going to be a good teacher. And there's some teachers who are not even really well renowned, but they're great teachers.
Yeah.
Depends on the person, depends on what you vibe with.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, because I thought you were kind of setting it up for, hey, the main instructor's not around, so that's no good. But that's actually not true at all. There's some places where the guy that's on the ground, the black belt or even the brown belt or even the purple belt that's on the ground every day that's totally into jiu-jitsu, he might be a great instructor. And so you might find that. And you do have some kind of person that's overseeing it that might not be the greatest instructor. So yeah, you got to look at the person that's there kind of day to day helping you and teaching you. And then what are your training partners like? I mean, if you think about it, there was a long time where, I mean, I learned 90% of my jiu-jitsu from you, right? And I had great instructors, but I trained with you. I wasn't trained. My instructor, when we were at Fabio's teaching everyone and he's training with everyone. And he definitely taught me a lot, but I was training with you every day, and you were the one that was like telling me, hey, don't do this, do that, So you got to look at your training part. What are your training partners like at your gym?
Or Fabio used to kick us off the mat. You have no social life. Get out of here.
We have that here too. We got like little cliques of guys, and they train with their group, and they get really, really good because they have a little core group of guys that they train with all the time.
Yeah. This happened recently. Someone I've been training, a friend of mine, he's a retired cop. And one of the places close to where he lives, he went there to try it out, and he said it was just, it was kind of a bully environment. And that's not really how I train my guys, my girls. So that wasn't for him. Now for someone else, that might be looked at as competitive and really cool. So it was all about perception. I mean, that I would never say that. That place a pretty good head instructor, by the way, but wasn't for him. So I think if someone goes and actually, if the instructor of the school didn't know you were from the town that you were at, I'm not really saying to lie, but just when they say you want to pay for a day pass, you're just looking around and don't really let them know you're from that city, so you don't get the sales tactic. You just get to try it out, see what you think. You pay the day pass or whatever. And if there's more than one option, you see which school you vibe with. In my opinion, that's a good way to start. Yeah,
and there's not really too much of a threat of someone being a fraud anymore. Yeah, just a straight up fraud. Where,
used to be.
I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and really they're not a black belt. They haven't trained. They really don't have much game, and they're just
YouTube,
liars.
If you type in fake black belt on YouTube, I mean, there's examples. And what's funny, I guess it's comical. You get the guy who obviously off camera was caught with some BS, and now on camera he's like, well, I don't want to roll. And because to someone who's done jiu-jitsu, you really cannot fake that. You just can't. Even if you're strong, athletic, you could actually look like when you walk around. You can get fake. In Brazil, there's guys who get fake. Well, it's actually a real cauliflower ear, but they actually damage their ears on purpose just so they look like a real tough fighter, but they're not fighters. That actually happens in Brazil.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, in Brazil, girls don't notice like your ears. It's a different culture. So maybe they get even plastic surgery for that. And seriously, I don't know, but I've seen it in Brazil where that's happened a few times. Although most guys don't do that. Most guys with cauliflower in Brazil, there's a reason they have it.
I bet your cauliflower ear is fake.
Yeah, that's going to be the next good insult in Brazil. I'll figure out how to use that.
Yeah, there's and the whole idea, like the old school idea of like being a fake black belt in some random martial art thing that never really gets tested. Isn't it crazy, bro? You post a lot of these on your Instagram, like the fake. What is that?
Listen,
dude, like when someone blasts their chi out of their palm and like 5 guys fall to the ground flailing.
They're funny, but really,
is that just like human psychology hypnotism type thing?
I've heard that before. That there's a willingness to want to blend in with the other people around you and acceptance. I don't know, or maybe it's weakness. I don't know. this kind of stuff can be dangerous because, okay, for self-defense training, I do have students that come in, especially sometimes females who just want to learn self-defense. And of course, they really should learn grappling and continue doing it. It's hard to learn grappling in 5 days, but there's workshops we do, and they help. They're better than nothing.
They're a good launch pad for a training career.
Exactly, for anyone, male, female, whatever.
Yeah, because if anybody thinks you're going to get good at fighting in 5 days, you're wrong. That's just wrong. It's like trying to get good at playing guitar in 5 days or trying to get good at playing chess in 5 days. It's not going to happen.
Jocko, what do you think about these in the magazines and when you see Navy SEAL, U.S. Army Ranger, hand-to-hand combat system, become a deadly machine in 5 days, or money-back guarantee? Yeah. That's just got to be like cringe.
Yeah. Do those things still exist?
I've seen a few of them. Not as much as before.
Probably because magazines don't really exist as much as they used to. But like back in the day, Soldier of Fortune.
Oh, yeah.
And
Ninja.
And like Black Belt magazine. And there were some legit things in there, just like there was legit things in Soldier of Fortune. I mean, Soldier of Fortune did a bunch of awesome interviews back in the day. And like were you on the cover of Black Belt magazine?
Grappling several times.
I thought you were on the cover of Black Belt one time.
Yeah, I think I was.
So there was legit things in there, but then there'd be advertisements in there, Navy SEAL, Ranger, and the funny thing is, when those guys said they trained Navy SEALs, it was probably true.
Yeah.
Because in the SEAL teams, we would hire people to come in and see what they had. Like, oh, what's your system? Let's see what you got. Let's see if it's effective or ineffective. And so it's probably the truth, but it's an altered truth.
Oh, here's what I saw recently. A few weeks ago, it was one of those YouTube commercials where you have to wait 5 seconds to click next. And I decided to watch it because it said he has over 400 bar fights to his name, and I'm like, son, I'm gonna watch it now. And he has 2 tours of Iraq, and he's a army something. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, see his secret to win any bar fight, and I'm like, okay, so that does exist. Sometimes,
still, just in a different format.
For some reason, I didn't buy it, but I saw that as an advertisement. Yeah, they do exist.
Your jiu-jitsu instructor, just to say this for the 1000th time, your jiu-jitsu instructor is not God or a god of any form. So if they're walking around, they've just been training jiu-jitsu longer than you. That's just the way it is. So if they're trying to treat you like you're a serf on their giant land and you owe them, like, that's not a cool relationship out of the gate to have with an instructor. Your instructor should be cool, and there's all kinds of good instructors all over the place now. I mean, jiu-jitsu is so widespread now compared to when we started. It's ridiculous.
I have seen a few times where the senior belts will look down upon the more junior belts, but not at the more legit schools. I've seen it a few times.
I always think that when I beat someone in jiu-jitsu, I always think, well, I've just been training longer than them.
Yeah.
And when someone beats me, I'm like, hey, cool, you've been training longer than me.
Or they got lucky.
You can get lucky in jiu-jitsu for sure. Someone makes a mistake and you can get lucky. That happens. It happens less.
Yeah.
But it can definitely happen. Now, this is an interesting subject in my mind. Do you think that there's some people, obviously there's some people that are naturally inclined to be good grapplers. You are a mutant who is genetically predisposed, almost engineered to be a dominant grappler of all sorts, of jiu-jitsu, of sambo, of wrestling. You're kind of naturally predisposed. Your frame, your mind, everything is sort of geared towards as if you were designed from the ground up to be an incredible grappler, right?
Maybe that's the case.
No. I mean, that's factually the case. If you look at, if I was to try and design a grappler, I would pretty much make you, right? I mean, right? I mean, you've got like you got this weird for as strong as you are and as flexible as you are. That's a weird combination, right? Your pain tolerance is very, very high. But also part of it is just your mental understanding of jiu-jitsu, and then on top of that, your creativity with grappling. It's all like this weird combination that makes sort of a mutant. So you're in my mind, you're on the extreme end of built for grappling.
I would say that types of learners. There's audio-based learners, there's visual-based learners, and there's the kinesthetic/tactile-based learners. I'm definitely the third, or the last category. So that helps in grappling. Also, the type of strength, it's not as explosive as would be needed in football. I mean, I was okay at football. But if I grabbed the guy, I would even arm tackles. Like I'd dive with one arm, grab the guy, and I'd get him. I'm not saying every time, but I would do that. But I couldn't dive as far as the other guys. See, I was fast off the line as a linebacker. So for that sport, it's a different type of strength, different type of explosiveness. Of course, there's a lot of overlap. And of course, you train with someone like Randy Couture. He's got that grip. When he has you, it's like you're in trouble. I'm kind of similar to that as far as when I grab someone, it's hard for them to get away. So in the realm of grappling, I mean, you can say who's fast or strong, who's heavier, who's lighter, but really the higher level grapplers have that amount of, prerequisite, I gotcha type of strength.
But then if you go too far with that, like some wrestlers don't convert well over to jiu-jitsu because they don't have enough like medium twitch, right? They're just too explosive, they gas out.
Yeah. Well, you see, in wrestling, that pace is super intense, but it's 6 minutes. By the way, that's a miserable, hard 6 minutes. I mean, that's his own sport. It's almost like comparing sprinting versus I don't know, the quarter mile versus the 5 mile versus the marathon.
Yeah.
They're all different types.
Even the 100 meter versus the 200 meter, those are different athletes.
Yeah.
And then the 100 meter versus the 800 is definitely a different athlete. And yes, you look at someone that does the 100 meter dash for a living versus someone that runs a marathon for a living. Those are two different types of humans. So there's a difference. Like I would say, well, maybe you could disagree with me, but you have a better body style for submission grappling than you do for straight wrestling.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Sure.
Yeah, because
I don't know why, but back when I was in high school, I was doing in the off season Greco-Roman wrestling with freestyle wrestling and with sambo, and that was the first time I was doing submission. There was one of my friends, he could beat me in Greco. And the same day he beat me, 8-4. I submitted him, in 30 seconds with ensemble. I submitted him in 30 seconds. He couldn't last more than 30 seconds with me with submission. I don't know why he could beat me in Greco-Roman wrestling.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. And part of that is your brain. Your brain is more. Your brain has a innate understanding of submission grappling. And I don't know if that's learned. I don't even think it's learned, though. I think it's just part of it's learned, obviously, but you're born with, I had a conversation with my daughter and she would say, I like wrestling more than jiu-jitsu, which, of course, broke my heart. But at the same time, it's cool. But when I asked her why, and this was when she was like maybe in her sophomore year of wrestling, and I asked her why. Oh no, it was her freshman year. I asked her why. Why do you what are you talking about? Why do you've been doing jiu-jitsu for a long, long time, and all of a sudden you like wrestling more? And she said, wrestling is simpler. All you have to do in wrestling is I take the person down and put their back on the mat, and I win. Jiu-jitsu, there's all kinds of these other things going on. You got to think about the half guard and the full. And I know that wrestling has all those technical things too at a higher level. When you look at what you get introduced to, there's a lot more to think about. If you take a white belt in jiu-jitsu and a white belt in wrestling, the white belt in wrestling, you're like, okay, this is what you need to do. Put their back on the mat. The white belt in jiu-jitsu, you have to explain all kinds of different positions and everything to them.
Is it the elbow, the wrist, the knee, the ankle, the neck? What?
Right.
Like, upside down, inverted, backwards, upside. What? Yeah, it's there's so many ways to. I said this roughly. How I compared striking with submissions. Striking is like a musical instrument, rhythm, different combinations, whatever. Of course, there's pitch, tone, whatever. But grappling is more like tying knots together. And by the way, each arm and leg is a rope. So if you give me 4 or 5 ropes, how many ways can I tie them together? I mean, there's an infinite. By the way, how long is the rope?
Yeah.
I mean, infinite. So it's just completely different. You get an expert professional mountain climber, they can tie knots behind their back and blindfolded, but average person can't do that. So there's different type of talent mental-wise, as far as who's going to be better at what. So yeah, grappling is just its own type of thing, but I think everyone could benefit from doing it.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I described you as having like a good body style for jiu-jitsu, but I think the biggest advantage in jiu-jitsu is a long, lanky body. Do you agree?
On paper, yes, but Marcelo Garcia is not lanky. So Ricardo Rona is not lanky.
Yeah,
he's a little shorter than me.
But Roger Gracie is.
Roger Gracie is. Kenny Cornelius is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Andre Galvão is not lanky.
Right.
So what I think is really cool about combat sports in general is that there is a way to make your body type into a world champion.
Yeah. Because you can point to examples of every body type.
By the way, for boxing, it was always considered, well, except for like you look at Joe Frazier, Rocky Marciano, Mike Tyson. I mean, look at the heavyweights now. I mean, the Klitschko's, well, not right now. Most of them are lanky guys. But then who was the guy? Joshua just got knocked out by Ruiz.
Yeah.
Ruiz was not lanky. so that
how tall is Ruiz?
I'm not sure. I don't know. 6 foot. I don't know.
Really?
But
yeah, because Tyson's my height. Wait, when Tyson's like my he's 5'11".
I met him several times. Yeah.
He's 5'11" and he fought at 225.
Good fight, met the lifter. He knew my name coming out. I was
Dang.
Crazy. Yeah.
But man, when he would get inside on someone,
it was
and
a problem.
Throwing those uppercuts,
he would use his body to make his style stronger. So
sure.
On paper, yes, you're right. There's going to be more lanky fighters who are champions, but I don't know. Yeah. In some ways, you get the guy who is 5'5" with no neck. It's really hard to get a guillotine on that guy.
That's true.
So if you find a way to use your style, yeah.
There's some people, I know some people that like they're just not going to be good at striking. They're not going to be good at takedowns, right? Like people have a natural thing, and I think it's I should say I think it's more mental than it is physical.
Yeah,
you know, like you see high school kids at wrestling, because obviously I go to a ton of high school wrestling tournaments because, well, my daughter just graduated, but just my son just wrestling all the time, and you spend the weekend. I would spend the weekend at 2 wrestling tournaments. Yeah. So I'd see 100 wrestling tournaments. And you can see some people, some kids just are good. They want to take down. And even though they might not be, like I would know the kids on my own kids' teams, like I know how long they've been wrestling for. Some of them, they want to get the takedown. They're good at getting the takedowns. The other ones are good at sprawl. It's like you get a mentality for what you're good at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you work within those bounds to, if you're smart, you'll strengthen your weaknesses, right?
True.
But you'll strengthen your weaknesses, but you won't try and rely on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You won't go out and focus on your weakness. You do this. You'll go out against a wrestler and you'll try and out-wrestle a wrestler.
I don't know why.
You'll go out against a jiu-jitsu guy and just try and out-jiu-jitsu a jiu-jitsu guy.
I faced one of my old rivals, but he's a friend of mine, Jean Gilberto. Then again, he wasn't really trying to take me down, so it was kind of I pulled guard on him like, I don't know, at least 12 times. And that's the wrong guy to pull guard against. Of anyone in the world, that's the wrong guy. But I don't want to get booed and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I guess default aggressive is better than nothing. I don't know. Yeah, I've been stubborn that way. Maybe it could be bad in some ways. Yeah.
Another thing about your brain, you have a very open mind when it comes to jiu-jitsu. When it comes to grappling, when it comes to fighting, but you have a very open mind. I think that's a sign of humility, because you're the person that doesn't say, "Oh, I know the best way to do this. Do it my way only."
Yeah, this is the best.
Even when you teach, you say, "Hey, look, this is how I do it." And sometimes you say, because you know my game so well, you'll be like, "Jocko does this. It's different. Here's how it's different. Here's why it's different." What is it? Where did you originally learn that you needed to keep an open mind when it came to jiu-jitsu?
I think that there's so many comparisons. So for anyone who's listening who's practiced judo, initially they're going to be a little offended, but in the end they're going to take it as a compliment. I always thought, because in high school wrestling, you just get down low and take down these judo guys. They couldn't stop it. Well, these are not Olympic athletes, first of all. Mm-hmm. Second of all, they're in a higher stance. But when I started fighting, and you're at a higher stance, because you can't be down in a super low stance in a fight. You'll get kicked in the head.
Yep.
So you have to be higher to fight correctly. Well, now those throws work from the fighting stance. So I was like, I was an idiot thinking this stuff doesn't work. It was just close. I was like 17, 18 years old. Everything can work. Leg locks, I was told for many years, I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my time. Even Jerry Costa told me, he was on the mat when I won Abu Dhabi in 2003 in Brazil. He said, thank God you didn't listen to me. So anything can work. It's just, if you feel you're actually going down the wrong path, you pretty much know you are, well then listen to yourself. But if you have a pretty good hunch, not just a hunch, just say verified feeling of truth, that you're going the right direction, you have some kind of belief in yourself, maybe listen to that
Did
belief.
you ever question yourself? Did you ever question like the road that you were taking? Because you were taking a road that had not been traveled.
I knew I had to find the best way to take that road. I don't know why I never doubted that. I got frustrated a few times.
See, it was easy for me to follow you down that road because I felt the repercussions of what was happening. In other words, I know that you could submit me with heel hooks, with foot locks. I knew that. I mean, I felt it happening over and over again. So for me, it was like, hey, if there's anyone in the world that says that this stuff doesn't work or doesn't believe that this stuff is going to work, go roll with Dean and find out what it feels like to get your freaking ankle crushed, because it doesn't feel good.
Yeah,
B, or C, or
A,
D.
B, C, D, or E.
So you that must have been a little bit of a feedback loop for you, though, because you would catch people and you go, okay, that worked. Most people, when they do a move the first time, even the first 10 times, it doesn't work. Do you remember doing foot locks or heel hooks where it didn't work and you just saw that there's a better way to do it, or you saw the mistake that you made?
I've lost tournaments because of that. But I realized, you know what? I know there's a way to make this work. You know, if we look at the early UFC 1, 2, and 4, where Royce Gracie, you know, he opened everyone's minds, and Jiu Jitsu, what's a submission? No, you know, and people were thinking Jiu Jitsu is the way. And by the way, it's the way. It's our way. It's what we do primarily. But then the wrestlers started doing real well. I mean, Mark Coleman was coming in, and Dan Severn was coming in, and I mean, now people are thinking, wow, wrestling is the way. It's the way. And then all of a sudden you had Maury Smith, head kick knockout, and you're, kickboxers, that actually works. Yes, it works. It all works. So the thing is, imagine if we all just think this works, now this works. No, really, it all works. It all works all the time. You're going to find crazy exceptions to every rule. You're going to find some people that have incredible resistance to punches, but they can't take you can choke them out in 1 second. And there's some strange guys I met where hard to choke. Remember that guy Joel?
Yeah.
He'd actually let you. I can make him tap with a rear naked choke, but it was hard.
But it's hard. Yeah.
He would actually. People would get their arms tired choking him with a rear naked choke.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
And I think he kind of liked it. I don't know. I'm not sure. He had a very relaxed look on his face, and then he would get out, and you were tired, and he would beat you.
Yeah.
And he actually won his mixed martial arts fights that way. I was even cornering. I didn't know who he was fighting. I was just there by coincidence. And Joel, and he's there. And hey, he saw him. He's like, yeah, I cornered him, and he went out there, took the guy down, let him get his back, let the guy choke him. The guy got tired, turned around and submitted him. This is just crazy. I mean, there's some characters out there, you know. Yeah, so
that's
what
pretty
works?
rare, though.
You know, that's extreme. That's the only guy I've ever met in my life like that. So, yeah,
that's something. So that idea for me, the idea of having an open mind, of looking at everything. This is probably one of the most profound things that I took away from jiu-jitsu, and a lot of it's because I was just watching you, listening to other people. You know, you'd come and you'd say, that's what this person, like we'd always see a video or we'd go to a seminar and you'd be like, what this person said here made a lot of sense. This didn't, this did, here's why. And you'd like break it down for me. But you always had an open mind about not thinking that you knew everything. Even right now, you'll be like, oh, I saw this thing. I saw a tournament. Did you see this match? And you say, this is what the person did. This is an improvement over what I used to do. Or it's another angle from what I do right now. And here's what you could do to counter it. Man, you were going over some counters with me the other day. And it's just crazy. You know, it's crazy that you sit there and look at it and you go, okay, this is a great system. what this person's doing here, but here's how you could counter these things. Here's a simple movement. Here's a simple arm position that puts that thing down. So that attitude that you have from jiu-jitsu, which is, I don't know everything, it's the humility. I think that's probably one of the things when I talk about you being a mutant that's designed for grappling. If you didn't have that kind of open mind, you would have locked into the same mentality that everyone else locked into when they started jiu-jitsu, which is, hey, this is the way you do it. These are the moves. There are no other moves. These are the moves. And you from day one were looking at it going, oh no, there's other possibilities.
There's one that recently I was putting this into words in my past probably 5 seminars. I told a story. I'll get a little technical, but not too down. One road, doing the leg lock where I'm sitting and I go straight back. Well, that used to be how everyone did it back in 93, 94. But everyone was getting mounted. You went straight back, the person would mount you over and over and over. So the Brazilians were like, hey, listen, we're going to fall to our side now. It made the mount really hard to implement as a defense. For about 2 years, matter of fact, I probably won 20 or 30 matches falling to my side. I even had like 5 or 6 footlocks in one day. I used to get these all the time. And like one triangle. I used to go and win my division in the absolute. Those were good times in LA. But so the Brazilians were falling to the side with the footlock to stop the mount. It took about 2 years to where like guys like Leozinho Vieira, guys like him, would just jump over your foot because you fall to the side. Well, because you fall to the side, they can now jump over your foot. If you fall backwards, well, now they can mount you. So what's the solution? How about you fix where your foot's at so you don't have to fall to your side and you go straight back? And so people just, I've seen that they all just fall to your side, fall to the side. As soon as they fall to their side, I'm already over their foot. Mm-hmm. But if I grab your foot and don't fall to my side, but my other foot is rearranged, now I don't have to fall to my side. So simple cover-ups, simple adaptations, it's simple. Like, why do people fall to their side? How about we don't have to do that anymore? It's that simple. We can like restart the structure of the technique and make it better in the long run. It does work. You know?
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing you've been breaking down for, well, as long as I've known you.
Yeah, a long time.
Big difference. Hey, man, cool. I think that's a good place to call it for today. Dean, your main social media right now is? Instagram, where you post random things. You post random things.
I don't know why that's my thing now.
Yeah, you post random things. So if you want to check out Dean at Dean Lister, that's his Instagram. And
Dean Lister BJJ.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so at Dean Lister BJJ.
Yeah. That's
okay,
correct.
There you go. So if you want to check that out, I'm at Jocko Willink. I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. At that. If you need a gi for your jiu-jitsu experiences, go to originmain.com. And I have another podcast called Jocko Podcast where I talk about war,
life,
and getting after it. Anyways, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Out.